in the same way as some of my opponents.
I think that's an excellent example too, kind of going along with the uniqueness of each person. So if we've already answered this already, I mean, feel free to say so, but what do you believe the right image we should have of ourselves is? Because that's definitely something I see value in elaborating. Kind of like the correct way to look at ourselves. Or is there a correct way to look at ourselves? Maybe it varies from person to person as well.
Well, so the correct way to look at myself changes all the time. I used to think that I was beautiful, extremely gorgeous before. When I think back, I was like surprised because I wasn't confident in the past, but I always feel the insecure I always felt that insecure feeling inside. That's why, sometimes I have to lie to myself that, hey, I was beautiful. But now it gets to the point where I don't really care about my image, what people think about me anymore, because I dress up the way I want to dress up. I want to look the way I want to look, not because I live up to other expectations. But I'm glad that I wasn't born with long legs. I'm glad that I wasn't born with gorgeous appearance or not so gorgeous appearance, because I think that if I was granted all those things when I was born, I would probably have given up my study, and I would probably go to the model industry or do something that they only care about the appearance of someone. And I might not be here today. So that's the correct way to look at myself personally. That's what I think. Because I'm happy that I wasn't born perfect.
I think I'm wondering if, like, when you have really close friends, you feel always comfortable with them, like you don't really care speak about your body too much, but I don't know, maybe it's different for you because you're a smart film. But with me, like, I was super shy like my whole life, and so like the first thing people saw was what they saw with, visually. But it took me a while to warm up and actually know what was inside. So I felt like I had to build the outside more in order to people to accept me initially.
I think that you shouldn't change the way you are, because I think that there are stereotypes for each person. And for me, you might perceive me as outgoing, and you think that you are not as outgoing and you are shy. But would you like to be outgoing to be considered shallow, while the people who are less outgoing and more reserved tend to be considered have more depth? And those who are outgoing might be considered shallow. So there's always pros and cons, and I think that you shouldn't change the way you are, and shouldn't let those stereotypes, define you. Right? And that's what I do.
That's actually kind of going off that is one of our questions that we also decided on for tonight was, why are we more concerned with the outside than the inside of a person? Why don't we look at the whole person, even kind of from a distance?
I think that's just, as a society, that's kind of what we just, have adapted to or have started to do of, not really getting to know somebody, but just making those snap judgments, or thinking someone's more successful because they're thin, or thinking that, someone has more, power, we should be, feel less confident around them, based on their appearance and not really on who they are, maybe even don't know who they are.
Well, realistically, I think that the outside is important as well, because I think that, that's how you make the first impression of yourself. And that's how, it's very important for people who are models, for example, the outside appearance, it matters to them. We cannot say that it doesn't matter if, we shouldn't care about the outside of ourselves, but I think that why the question is why we always concerned about our body image, but we don't ask what the image of the body is. Because I think that it sounds similar to each other, but if we close our eyes, I assume that most people will picture the image of body is a figure with, for example, 2 arms, 2 legs, etc. But that's how we take everything for granted. We are biased because not everyone have that figure of the body. So I think that is not it's very controversial, but I think that we have to really be thankful for what we have today, and we have to also take care of, we have to also value our inside, because I think that will be in others' mind when they think of you. It will last longer than your outlook, because when you grow old, your appearance will change. As I say that, I might become pregnant, I will gain weight, I will have wrinkles on my face, and it doesn't matter. But the inside will last, not the outside.
When you get older, you get smarter, so that compensates for this.
It depends. I might be asthmatic.
Yeah, not as much as you think.
My mom says no matter, she's one of the best advice she ever gave me. She's like, Stephanie, no matter how old you get, you will always feel young and stupid.
People say that we grow old, but we don't become mature.
Yeah.
I think that, kind of noticing, the values of other people is important too. And I think that, in my own experience at least, college is kind of like a grounds where you see it happen less and less that people are judged necessarily on the outsides, as far as like who you get to know or like who you become friends with. But I think another important thing, kind of shifting our focus a little bit, but something that's interesting in the context of body image is, do you think that body image is a first world problem, or do you believe that it also exists outside of what we kind of refer to as the Western world?
Well, I think that I just said that. I think that it's the first world problem is that it's because we always think and we always worry about our body image, not the image of the body. And that's what I think is the first world problem. We take everything for granted. Yeah.
I think we do see a lot of eating disorders and body image problems kind of centered a little bit more towards our society and also more affluent areas, which is interesting. I went to a conference this past summer and they did a presentation on the Himalayan culture, and one of the mental health counselors went out and was providing service in that area, and had said that before, and I think it wasn't even until fairly recently that they allowed, more TV and more Western influence to come in, that all of the mental health issues drastically changed. And I thought that was pretty interesting that, that influence is, coming from, how we're viewing society, and kind of like you were saying before, just about, okay, I was homeschooled, I didn't have all that other experience, and then all these other issues kind of arose once I went to public school.
Advertising and marketing make a big difference. You talked earlier about, the body image, is it affected by that? And of course it is. I mean, it's been that way as long as advertising and marketing has existed. Why did cigarette advertisements years ago have attractive models? Because that made people feel like they should be doing that, you know. And it has always been, and as long as those things continue to exist, there can be positive influences. There can be people like, we all know who Jared is, from Subway. That was a positive influence for a lot of people, you know, that encouraged them, yeah, you can lose weight and eat healthy in our culture. But there are a lot of negative images, and I think for young people, it's really difficult. High school and college, there's constant pressure to be beautiful, and you know, there's also pressure to perhaps dress or act in a suggestive or promiscuous way. And when I'm taking care of young people and talking to them about that, I'd like to point out that that is a fallacy, and that there's no way that that's not necessarily a healthy way to look at oneself. You know, feeling like they need to act in that particular way doesn't always lead to healthy choices, but can lead to mental health and thereby physical health problems.
I also think that we can never please ourselves. We will never feel satisfied with ourselves because we are human. And I think that if I, for example, if I live up to others' expectations, for example, if I'm here, like I want to be 10, so what if I come back home, am I going to whiten my skin, and when I get back here, am I going to go tanning again? You know, like it's very bothersome, and I think that is definitely a first world problem because it's not necessary to worry about, because we should take care of ourselves and, you know, take care of the way that we look, but we shouldn't overthink about it, because we can never feel satisfied of the way we look. Even the model, or you know, the people that we think are beautiful, but they are not satisfied with themselves either, just like us.
Okay, I think I'm lost, first of all. So if you don't mind giving me a second. Let's take another look at kind of our online conversation and see where that's going. I don't know if that's kind of mirrored what we've been talking about as well.
I know that there has been some conversation in terms of do we, it was like six, okay, about is body type a choice? And there's some conversation about how, is it not, what is the benefit of body choice? How does it impact how people relate to you? That while there is certainly, you know, while it's always better to get to know the mind and the heart of a person, what influence does body type have over that initial hello, which gets you to the point where you get to know someone? So is body type a choice? What role do we think does it play? I don't know. I mean, there's like this huge long thing happening here. I'm trying to be in both places at the same time, and I'm not succeeding. So is body type a choice?
I would say that body type, you know, genetic body type is not a choice. You know, I cannot choose to be anything other than approximately the height that I'm going to end up being. And, you know, so, I mean, you can't choose to be 6 foot tall or 5 foot tall. And there are going to be certain people that have a genetic predisposition to be lighter or heavier. There are genetic conditions that cause people to spill sugar in their urine that tends to keep them from gaining weight. There are conditions that cause people to be more likely to have thyroid problems and have a very difficult time keeping weight off. So there are some predisposing factors that you cannot overcome and stay alive and healthy. But more of the body type choice is a lifestyle choice, is knowing what an approximately healthy weight for you should be, choosing how much, you're gonna spend time in the gym to get cut, or you're gonna spend time, getting thin, or, how much you're gonna choose to eat. Those are choices in most cases, and are not there. But you can't alter, a body type that's gonna say, you're gonna be a tall woman. That's not always the most desirable body type in some cultures. You can't fix that. So,
But you have influence on how you respond to what you can't
lots of
control.
influence that, yeah.
I think when you try to go against your body type, it backfires eventually. Like, if someone tries to lose a lot of weight, not eating that much, your body's gonna go into starvation mode, and you're gonna hold on to everything every ounce of that you can to hold on, because your body is smarter than you in some ways. So whenever you try to go against that, it's gonna backfire, it's gonna be harder. And yeah.
Would you say that there's a benefit to body type? I know that you spoke to kind of the sort of desired body type by culture, but would you say that body type impacts or influences like how people relate to each other, especially in terms of looking at the outside of the person first, which is kind of what our earlier discussion was as well. Do you think that there's a relation between the type of body that you have and how people relate to you?
There shouldn't be, but there probably is.
I was gonna say, I think sometimes people do feel more comfortable approaching someone maybe based on a body type or, that kind of snap judgment. But, maybe that there shouldn't be that, but I think that there is probably that. So hopefully kind of as, hopefully we can work towards, changing that somehow, working more on, what's inside more than, spending time on the outside.
Oh, go for it.
I know we've been talking a lot about genetics, but there's a lot of research and stuff we've actually reviewed in our environmental science class on this campus, that what is in the food is actually sort of rewiring the way our genetics work, and that with all the added sugar that's already being put into the food, that it's changing the composition, not so much in the generation that's eating the food, but in the generation that is born after the food being consumed. So we've seen an increase in obesity within our generation as well as a little bit older, but it's even more, it's on the rise with the younger generation as well. And I think a lot of that is starting to be shown with the junk food industry as well as the fast food industry, as well as the McDonald's hamburger that's out for 15 years that didn't change. Meat shouldn't sit that long, right? Shouldn't mold over. The fact that it was cooked and it's remained the same. Do you foresee that the food needs to be changed in order to see a difference? That it might not be just a genetic thing or how much you work out, because there's people that can work out all day long, and as you mentioned, the genetics are going to dictate at the end of the day how they're going to ultimately look, and that there could be another underlying cause that's changing the genetics overall.
Sure, you need to change the types of foods that you're eating. And I want to clarify, there are some movements that say, genetically modified foods or this or that. I have a hard time getting behind some of those arguments, because what we eat is fundamentally sugar, protein, nucleic acid, and fat. Those are the four basic nutrient types that they get broken down into. And so when you eat, you're taking in those types. A bigger question is what quantity of those various nutrients are you actually getting in? And if you're eating a lot of unhealthy food, fatty food or starchy food that doesn't, is whole wheat pasta better for you than traditional pasta? Probably, yeah. So, being conscious of what you're putting in your body and limiting, the negative aspects and trying to take in more of the healthier foods and taking the right quantities of them makes a huge difference. And yes, industrial food, or whatever you want to call it, some of the food industry definitely is leading us astray from our health, and we have to be very conscious of it.
I also would like to set me as an example. So I came here as a freshman, and after 4 months, which means after one semester, after the first semester, I gained 17 pounds. And now I lost all of that, and I'm still eating the same food, the guys' food. So I'm not gonna blame on the food. It's totally up to the choice of us.
Not to
And how-
interrupt, but there's also been studies that show, and I don't want to single out one culture, but Japanese are not typically known as being an overweight culture, and they're now starting to see an increase in their obesity rates, and that is starting to be correlated at the same time that our potato chips were introduced into their economy, for instance. And that's what's also, I think, sparked a lot of this change that's now we're starting to see in the U.S., as well as if you look at the diets of Europe, they don't have nearly the processed food. And if you actually read the labels of Lay's chips in Europe versus Lay's chips in the United States, you're going to see probably 15 ingredients versus about 25. So I mean, there's definitely a huge difference there with the food itself.
I would like to answer that. I think that everyone likes new things. Like who doesn't want to try new things, right? So when you see something new, when you have something new, you just want to try it, and you think that it's good, and you like it because it's tasty, for example. But I think that when you get used to it, you will see the ugly side of it, and that's when you realize that it's not healthy for you.
Not to play devil's advocate, but with Japanese culture, yet again, cigarettes. They have one of the highest rates of men or male smoking cigarettes, but yet they also have in that same category the lowest cancer rate. Meanwhile, they smoke by far the most out of for the male category, and yet they have the lowest rates of cardiac arrest, as well as heart disease that are commonly associated with many other groups that do smoke. So I find that some of the correlations there just aren't quite adding up exactly in the math.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. For example, the Western fast food brand, when it comes to an Asian country, think about it, it's like an exotic thing that they have never tried before. That's why everyone loves trying, and when they get addicted to it, they cannot take themselves away from what they are used to. But when they are too used to it, which I hope that they will be that point soon, but when they are too used to it, they will see the ugly side of it. And then, for example, you guys are so used to American fast food, for example, and that's up to this point when you realize that it's not healthy for you. And maybe